This is a production of PBS Charlotte. Carolina Impact, covering the issues, people, and places that impact you. This is Carolina Impact.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Amy Burkett. Welcome to a special Carolina Impact conversation as we explore the effect COVID-19 has had on local businesses. More than 1 million North Carolinians have filed for unemployment since the pandemic hit our region. And nationally, that number is more than 20 million people have lost their jobs. Let's meet our panel. We have Dena Diorio, Mecklenburg County Manager. She activated the stay-at-home order in the county before the state. Next, we have Tom Murray. He's CEO of the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority. We also have business leaders with us. Vinay Patel, principal of Sree Hotels, which manages 12 hotels in our region. And DANHOOKS is president and CEO of Party Reflections, a 60-year-old company based in Charlotte. And Lyons is owner of Charlotte Pop Bar in Noda, a cold treat business that was in the process of opening a second store when COVID hit. So let's begin with Mecklenburg County Manager, Dena Diorio. Dena, while we all want to believe that the worst is behind us, help us understand a little bit that we may not be there yet. There's still a lot of room for concern. Talk to us from the county standpoint.
So the county has always managed this pandemic based on the data that was happening here in Mecklenburg County. And so we have seen, like everybody else has, we've seen our increase in cases, but we really feel like people have abided by the stay-at-home order. They have taken the necessary precautions. So we have seen our curve flatten significantly. We see the number of positive tests as a percent of total tests starting to flatten and actually decline. So we're making a tremendous amount of progress. We are following the governor's stay-at-home order, which has the 3 phases of reopening. And we're just going to really have to take it day by day, but we feel like we're headed in the right direction. There's been a lot of discussion about another surge, another peak sometime in the fall. Nobody knows for sure, but we just need to continue to do what we're doing, and we feel like we'll continue to make progress.
Great. Tom, talk to us a little bit. Hotels and restaurants, your industry has really been affected by this. What are you seeing? Talk to us about it.
Certainly, when we shut down the economy, we are going to have people not traveling and staying overnight. There is still a bit of traffic in hotels, and we're starting to see that uptick a little bit, but it's significantly off of where it used to be. Hotels in the Mecklenburg County area are running somewhere around 25% occupancy, and it's starting to pick up a little bit, but it's a long way from the amazing track record we've had over the last few years of success in the hospitality industry. So certainly the restaurants have been hurt the hardest and as well. And so we're watching all of them closely and hoping that they all recover.
Vinay, this is your industry. This is your livelihood. You own 12 hotels in our region. Mm-hmm. Talk to us. And you've done some innovative things to do your best to keep employees employed.
Yeah, we have. I agree with Tom. If you look at where the industry was, I did an interview with another news station on March the 12th, and they asked me a question: how does this compare to 9/11 in 2009? And I said, you know what, it doesn't feel as bad. And that was March the 12th. And March 15th happened, and we fell off a cliff. Literally fell off a cliff. April, industry-wide, the industry was down 90% year over year. We decided as a company not to furlough anybody. All our salaried managers stayed on, 12 here, 24 in total. All our salaried managers are still on payroll, still getting paid. Our hourlies took a hit. If you're working 40, you might have gotten 8, you might have gotten 16. And for the first month and a half, talking about creativity, I said we couldn't give our employees the hours, but out of 2 kitchens, our Embassy Suites right here in Charlotte and our Courtyard by Marriott in Columbia, we provided meals for all of our line level of associates. They just drove up, picked up 1 hot meal a day for them and the entire family and took it home. It lasted a month and a half. People got our numbers dwindled. We were doing 200 to 300 meals a day. It didn't make sense when it was only 20 and 30 meals a day. So we stopped it a couple of weeks ago, but it was so well accepted. And we just started bringing people back. We had 85% of our employees tell us that they were ready, willing, and eager to come back to work as our PPPs got approved.
Congratulations on that. You know, Dan, let's talk a little bit. Party reflections. This is party time of year, graduation, so much going on. I suspect you had a lot of business booked. And then did it all just disappear, or how did you innovate and adapt?
Very much like Vinay was saying, I mean, we went from our biggest problem in March the 5th, March the 6th was, I was in Vegas actually at a trade show, and our biggest issue there was how are we going to hire enough people to handle everything we've got for April and May after coming through the biggest season in September and October of 19. So when 2 or 3 weeks after that, we had to cut our staff immediately. We dropped 97% immediately in the middle of March. So we dropped our staff in half, tried to hang on to that for a little while, but realized that was not going to be feasible for us. So we had to drop it again in half. So we're basically 60 employees out of 240 right now. And PPP money has come along, but really we're trying to wait until all the guidelines come out for that to figure out exactly how to spend that money before we make some bad decisions and end up costing ourselves further down the line. So, you know, we're hanging on, but just like the hospitality industry, the restaurants and everything else, we've tried to pivot towards certain things. We've done some hospital work. We've done some other COVID related work for big corporations doing testing on their way into facilities for employees or testing for the hospitals. But literally it's 4% of what we normally do this time of year. And with the seasonality of the business, that's all the more pressing for us because we're going to be getting out of the season by the end of May or June, and probably not a whole lot going on in the summer until we get back to fall again. So, you know, we're looking forward to the fall and hoping that numbers will get up in gatherings to where we can be feasible again, because that's our entire business, is gathering of people.
You know, let's go to Kia now. So the difference between having hundreds of employees like Dan to you are truly a small business. Talk to us a little bit about how many employees you have and how your business has been impacted.
Well, for my business, COVID-19 has brought a lot of hardship. My household is actually a 2-entrepreneur household. And so you can just imagine the impact that has had on our household. But speaking particularly to Pop Bar, which is my baby that's been open for a little over 3 years now, we have had our sales to decline by 75%. And normally this is our peak season. So I normally have 15 employees this time of year, and I have 5, and one of the 5 is me. And so that, you know, those are normally things that small business owners do. In addition to that, like you mentioned, I also had to postpone starting a second location. And now we're really having to shift our businesses to think about the safety of our employees and our customers, and also to provide a level of comfort that we want to continue to pay jobs during this time. And so we're having to pivot as quickly as possible to do things like delivery, which we had not done before, from the store, takeaway, just trying to remain relevant and keep fighting to stay open. For us, we already had a rough year last year in 2019. Our building was under construction for 9 months out of the year. So our revenue declined 30% last year, and then COVID. And so we are just trying to stay focused and put one foot in front of the other, because, I mean, as a small business owner, everybody's been a small business at some point in time, and our passion for what we do keeps us moving forward and wanting to be here after COVID-19.
So Dena, what can the county do for businesses? I know entrepreneurism is important to our region. A lot of people have talked about whether or not there's just some health supplies, perhaps the county might be able to help some small businesses and businesses in general. What do you see as being able to just be an initiator of moving things forward?
So the Board of County Commissioners approved $5 million for a small business revitalization fund, and it's for any business that has under 50 employees. There are some underwriting requirements that you'd have to meet, but it allows businesses to tap into loans of up to $35,000 with a repayment period of 10 years at 3% interest. And the first 9 months are interest-only payments, and there's no prepayment penalty. So that launched in April, and we had $5 million available. We've gotten applications of $8.8 million, so we know there's a need out there. There's still applications that are being processed. We've awarded about $2.7 million in loans so far. So we are trying to use our dollars to be able to help businesses. We want to give businesses a longer runway. We know that they're going to apply for PPP. It's not an if or and. We want people to do both. We want to give people to access as many resources as we can. So we encourage our small business to take advantage of that. And then once that fund is depleted, we will go back to the board and see if they want to add some additional dollars to that. So we think that's been a really successful program. We also have a microloan fund, which is $1 million, and that is for businesses that are less than 5 employees. And it does not include businesses in the city of Charlotte or Mint Hill because of the funding source. But again, for small businesses that meet the requirements, they can access loans of up to $10,000, and those are interest-free. So we are trying to be creative in terms of how we provide support to small businesses. We did get $39 million from the federal government through the CARES Act. I know the Board of County Commissioners is interested in looking at some of those dollars and seeing if there's other things we can do to support small businesses. So there's more to come on that front.
So I want this to be a conversation, and I want each of you to share questions that you might have for each other. And I always say collaboration helps us all. And so who has a question, and how can we help stimulate the conversation that could possibly help us stimulate our economy?
Well, I have a big mouth, so I'll start. One of the other things that we did is we've launched this Business Leaders Roundtable, which has, and Tom is actually a member of that, where we're trying to provide guidance to businesses on what they need to help them reopen. So I'd be interested in hearing from our business folks here at the table about what guidance or support do you think we can give you as you plan to reopen and scale back up. And if we can help provide that, we're happy to do so.
Vinay, I know you had your finger up and you're ready to say something. I don't know if it's related to her question or not, but hopefully we can
some of it is. I mean, I will tell you, from a hospitality perspective, right? At the end of the day, it's about building customer confidence. It's about building confidence in people that we're ready, able, willing, and we're clean. The cleaning procedures that hotels and restaurants have been using for years kills COVID virus. So it's not something something new that we're doing. These were procedures that we were already doing. The new in this is this whole idea of social distancing. What does that mean? How do restaurants, how do hotels, how does party reflection, take into account social distancing? So that's what's going on. Associations are doing it, brands. I mean, I sit on 2 Marriott advisory boards, and their guidelines, I've got a draft guideline already that we discussed on the various boards, and their final guidelines are gonna come by tomorrow, and they'll go out to all of its franchisees. And and more of it is about this whole social distancing and about consumer confidence and consumer perception. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about the fact that we cleaned. Now we have to, and I have this line all the time: my hotel is cleaner than your home.
Well, that's easy to do.
Right? Your restaurant or a bar is cleaner than your kitchen because it's cleaned on a regular basis, not just daily, almost hourly. So it's about getting that messaging out.
Well, I think one thing too, it's like Vinay was talking about. From what we're seeing, we do a lot of things in advance. Obviously, people are planning weddings in advance. They're planning, functions in advance. So from a consumer confidence standpoint, we're seeing a lot of positivity because they're already looking to, they move from a May wedding to a September wedding, or move from a June wedding to, an October wedding. So we've always said, you can't stop somebody from getting married. They're going to get married. I don't care what it is. Now, COVID's definitely put a little curtail to it, but it's not stopped it. But I think the positive thing is we have that customer confidence that's coming back, and consumer confidence is coming back. I think for us, getting back to what Vinay's talking about, and Dena too, let us as an industry, a hospitality industry also, help create an environment where we can all have the social distancing, have the camaraderie, have, some normalcy to it. By, what we do in the industry, and Vinay does too, how do we take a blank space and create what social distancing can allow to still have an event, to still have an intimate setting for people, but not just say real blandly, well, no more than 10 people can gather. Well, we can gather 500 people, and I bet you I can keep you from having 10 people talk to another 10 people in the same room simply by the way we create the traffic flow of people in and out of that space, and how we access the space and give access out of the space, and clean the space like Vinay's talking about. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do as an event community to get things back going again safely without just saying, well, no more than 10 people can gather, because I think that's too easy of a way to go without really getting us and our expertise involved in that conversation.
I think the good news from our standpoint is, like Dan said, our customers are rebooking with us. Mm-hmm. And so they're anxious to come back. And we do a lot of research around this, and 70% of our customers say they strongly agree that they are anxious to start traveling again. And 50% of them think that they'll start traveling regionally first, right? And so, for us, what we can do best to help our small businesses is making sure that we're driving traffic into our community. And so when it's appropriate, when we get the right signals from Dena and her team that it's time to start doing this, we'll be advertising pretty aggressively to welcome people back to our community. And a lot of what my team does hosting these large conventions is the kind of business that Dan and Vinay and Kia all look forward to serving. And so, everybody should know our team is still all working. They're dealing with customers every day, rescheduling, rebooking, trying to be flexible. The old rules about our contracts and our relationships with them are not the same anymore, because we really have to be thoughtful about what they're having to think through. And if you're planning out 90 days from now for a convention, and it's hard to explain to them exactly how they can host a convention yet, right? We don't really know yet. And so it's constant communication, and we're working really closely with the county and the city and the state to try to make sure that we understand what is likely to happen, and so that we can best prepare our customers.
Dena, I want to get back to, I'd love your comment on what Dan said. How can we get more than 10, an event so we can have more than 10 people practicing good social distancing and all of those things? When do we possibly see this coming?
Well, we're in phase 1 right now of the governor's reopening plan, and that goes through May 22nd. And we'll have to see what the guidelines are for mass gatherings. Right now, the number is 10. We don't know what the number will be when he goes to phase 2 in May 22nd, but as that number continues to get bigger, it will allow for those kinds of gatherings that Dan is speaking of. Phase 3 will come sometime 2 to 3 weeks after phase 2. So sometime in early June, if the data shows that we're headed in the right direction, we could start to see situations where, like Dan talked about, having bigger gatherings where you can practice social distancing and make people feel safe. But these are the kind of messages that we need to be getting out into the public domain, that all of these industries are talking about how they can reopen and redo it safely. And that builds the confidence for people to want to come out and feel comfortable to do these things. And these are all really great ideas that we can push out through our social media channels and others. I'd be interested in getting the guidelines from Vinay about how they're going to keep the hotels clean and safe, because these are all things that people need to hear so we can start to rebuild that consumer confidence.
I think those conversations are definitely being having with, the larger businesses like the hotels and the conference centers in Charlotte, but the true voice of the small business owner is not being a part of those conversations. And I really think that's really important. I know we're going to have conventions that are going to bring people to Charlotte. But when I think about my business, I can't be grouped into a big group. I really need some one-on-one insight on, or just to be seen as a part of the business world here in Charlotte. My business is unique, and it's a part of, what makes Charlotte a great place to visit. Although small, it still has an impact on bringing money into Charlotte and bringing people into Charlotte. And so I really want to make sure that the voice of people like me that have businesses that are smaller are still being included in these conversations.
Yeah, Kia, that's a very, very valid point. I'm part of the city's COVID Small Business Recovery Task Force. Mm-hmm. You probably read about it. And they've put aside $35 million out of the CARES Act money that the city has received for that. I mean, for exactly what you're saying, right? For micro businesses, loans up to $10,000, not loans, grants up to $10,000 out of that. And then for 6 to 25, grants up to $25,000. So there are going to be at least 1,000 businesses that are going to be able to access this money. And my recommendation to the group was it goes to people that could not access PPP. So if you got PPP, you're at the bottom of the list if you applied for it. If you didn't have access to PPP, then you're first in line. And we have members on that group that, Kia, just like you, that are entrepreneur, have that entrepreneurial spirit, that have that 0 to 5 employees, that have that 0 to 25 employees. So it is being heard. And I think, I think Dena's group probably has some of those too. So it's definitely there. And this group is talking a little bit more than just money. It's about how do we help? How does B2B mean? What does B2B look like for the small business, for the micro business? What does B2C look like for the small business and the micro business? Kind of creating some of those things and putting it out there, not just now, right? This is something that we can use way out into the future. There's going to be something like this that's going to continue to happen over our lifetimes. So this gave us a jolt, it gave us a wake-up call. So now let's make sure that we're doing what's right.
Right. And I want to really make sure that I'm transparent, just so that you understand things a little bit more from my perspective, because I did get approved for the PPP, and because it's based on my payroll, I'm only going to get about $14,000. Mm-hmm. And so that goes like that. Mm-hmm. And I have a business that, although it's open year round, it's a seasonal product. And so I'm also thinking about the winter time too, because now is the time that we usually boom this time of year, and we always put money aside to carry us through the winter. Mm-hmm. And so $14,000 is gone. And, when it comes to programs like the micro loan, of course it's for Mecklenburg, not from Mecklenburg County, number one, but two, that also has other limitations to where you have to have a minimal amount of revenue. And so that kicks me out of that category.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're starting to run out of time.
Yeah.
So we've got less than 2 minutes, and my apologies. This is an important conversation, and I'm so grateful for the interaction. But I want to give each of you about 30 seconds to sort of sum up. I know I'm going to begin with you, Dena. One of the things the county has not decided that it will not raise taxes. And that's a step in the right direction. But I know some businesses are saying, would you reevaluate the real estate taxes? Is that an option?
Well, unfortunately, it's not an option. We just did our last property revaluation in 2019, and we'll do our next one in 2023. So at this point in time, there's not really an opportunity to look at property values based on the cycle that we're on, unfortunately.
Tom, what's your takeaway?
Well, I think there is a light at this end of this tunnel, and I think we're all starting to see it. We need to do the things that we are being counseled to do by our elected leaders and people like Dena to make sure that we're supporting and helping the recovery effort. But once we're ready to go, I'm confident that customers are anxious to get back. We know there is some pent-up demand, and we know our industry is ready to serve. I think the difficult part will be, it won't be like turning a light switch on, right? So as Dena talked about, we're going through these phases. It's going to be a little bit more of a progression as we move through. And so we'll have to be really careful about our employees as we go through that, and making sure that we're watching and taking care of them.
Final thoughts, Dan, from Party Reflections.
I think it's been great to hear the positive impact of all this that's going on. I would once again urge everyone to sort of, keep everybody in the influence of how we can help. How can the event industry and the hospitality industry support moving forward with social distancing to get more people involved and get this thing faster and speed it up so that we can all get people back to work, because that's what my employees are looking forward to, is getting back to work. And until I can have more than 10 people gather, which is basically a dinner top table, then we can't do much. So I'm looking forward to that.
Vinay.
I'll tell you, I know, Dena, you mentioned that property taxes are not something that, that can be looked at. Just two thoughts. One, is there a deferral option that people can defer it out a little further? Two, just to keep in mind, we did a reevaluation when the economy was full blown, going full force. Today's economy is at the Great Depression levels, and it's not going to come out. I talked to the Fed chair, for the Richmond Fed president, and yesterday on his call, he said, it's going to be a swoosh. Our industry, we're looking at a 2 to 3 year rebound in revenues, at least, at a bare minimum. What they're saying is 2021 is going to look like potentially 2013 from a business valuation perspective. So, I understand it's not there, but something at least to take a look at.
And Kia, I'm going to give you the last word because we are so out of time.
Okay, I just want to say thank you to PBS for including me in this conversation, and to CRVA and to Dena for creating toolkits and things for small business owners to help us during this time, because we're kind of walking blindly in some situations, and having those resources being made for us while we're in the trenches trying to maintain our businesses are really appreciated.
Well, I appreciate each of you and your willingness to just have a conversation with me. I know we just scratched the surface, but thank you. We wish you all the best in your businesses. And, we look forward to gathering and being able to have events and to come stay in hotels and to buy that cold ice cream. And so we're grateful to each of you and wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night, my friends.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everybody.
A production of PBS Charlotte.